I'm Maya Travolsi. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, a campus brawl sends Lincoln High School students to the hospital. Now, police and school officials are trying to find out what happened. And you might want to think twice before paying with plastic on public transit in San Diego, and we're going to tell you why. Also tonight, the David and Goliath fight over a Carlsbad development is over. And Super Tuesday could be a last stand for some Republican candidates. You're watching Evening Edition on KPBS. Good evening and thanks for joining us. Students at Lincoln High School are working to lead the healing after a campus brawl that sent 4 students and a police officer to the hospital. The fight happened last Friday. This morning, the students held a prayer circle before classes and they wore green to show unity. The school also held an assembly to talk about the fight where police officers used tasers and pepper spray on students. There's still no word on what caused the fight. One student was arrested. Our media partner 10 News reports he is the son of San Diego rapper Tiny Do, who made the headlines after he was jailed on a gang conspiracy charge over his rap lyrics. A judge tossed the case out. The rapper's real name is Brandon Duncan. He says he plans to meet with San Diego Unified Superintendent Cindy Martin to get his son cleared. Body cameras will get a trial run with the Carlsbad Police Department this week. The test is expected to last 4 to 6 weeks. The department is still finalizing its policy about when the cameras will be turned on, but officials say people should assume they're recording at any given time. Apple won a round in court today. A New York judge says the federal government cannot force Apple to provide access to a locked iPhone. This ruling comes in a drug case, and it gives Apple support in the debate over hacking into the iPhone of one of the San Bernardino shooters. The company also got support from a San Diego congressman over the weekend. Republican Darrell Issa wrote in Wired magazine that forcing Apple to unlock the phone would set a dangerous precedent that could cast a shadow over how we use phones, laptops, and the internet. Medical records for hundreds of patients were found on a Paradise Hills sidewalk this morning. Our media partner 10 News reports the records were from Modern Home Healthcare, which is based in Chula Vista. The records contain social security numbers, birth dates, and other sensitive information. The man who found the records called police.
And I would like to make sure that it's not going to happen to me and to you, that these people are irresponsible of dumping our private information.
Modern Home Healthcare says they're looking into the situation. For years, San Diego public transit riders have been able to use credit and debit cards to load daily and monthly passes onto their Compass cards. But each transaction, whether online or at a ticket machine, may be putting the passenger's credit card information at risk of being stolen. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen broke the story of how MTS is failing at data security. I spoke with him in the studio earlier today. Andrew, how has the Metropolitan Transit System failed to protect its passenger data?
Well, that's a very good question, Maya, and it's one that we don't know the full answer to. MTS says it's not complying with what's called the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standards. It's kind of a mouthful. But basically, those are a list of rules and best practices that govern how merchants who want to accept credit card payments protect the data in those transactions. They can include things from building up firewalls, encrypting cardholder data, everything from physical security at an actual point where this data is entered. MTS doesn't want to talk about the specifics of where they're falling short. Essentially, they say that would be a how-to for how hackers can enter their system. I did ask them, give me a general assessment. How are you doing? And they told me, and I quote, "There's a lot of work to be done."
So they have admitted to being non-compliant?
Essentially, yes. And They say that they're spending upwards of $700,000 trying to become compliant or get closer to it, sort of mitigate the risks of an actual data breach. But even those that $700 are not going to get them to full compliance. The cost of full compliance, they say, is going to be upwards of $7 million, and that's a cost that they say they're not really ready to invest in right now. They say they want to put that money towards building a whole new fare collection system, one that will be a lot more user-friendly. It will offer new features, make it a lot easier for people to ride public transit, which I think everybody agrees is a good thing. The problem with that answer is they don't have an end date. They're not really ready to say we're going to achieve compliance with these standards by this date.
Okay, now we know that using a credit card is one of our modern luxuries, and most people do use credit cards. But what's at stake here for people who do?
Well, in this case, people's credit card information could be stolen. In previous data breaches, people have also had phone numbers and email addresses hacked. But, when your credit card is stolen, it's an inconvenience. You have to call your credit card company and say, hey, I didn't make these charges, and those costs are ultimately not on your back. It's happened to me before. It's a pain, but it's really just an inconvenience. The real liability here is MTS itself. And by extension, taxpayers and fare-paying transit riders. If there were a breach, credit card information were stolen, MTS essentially would be liable to pay for the costs of that breach. I spoke to an expert in the field, a man with a data security firm called Coalfire, and they essentially help companies become compliant with these standards. He said when there's a lawsuit after a breach, there's really no excuse for not meeting these standards. Here's what he had to say.
The courts are going to look at their due diligence in protecting their customer data. And when they see, they'll look at the PCI compliance and say, okay, this is what the standard is. This is what the industry standard is. You failed to meet that standard. So therefore, you were negligent.
So how long has MTS actually known that their data was not completely secure?
Well, the Compass card system was first developed in the mid-2000s, and at that time it was run by SANDAG, the Transportation Planning Agency for San Diego County. They handed over responsibility to MTS for this system in July 2014. MTS says, before that point we had an inkling that the system needed security upgrades, but it was only after that point that we really realized the full scale of the problem. And to MTS's credit, they took action very quickly. They hired an outside firm to help assess where their gaps are and how they can sort of close those gaps. But the problem is still, as I mentioned before, is that they don't have an end date. They don't know when they're going to become compliant with these standards. And another part of the story that's not entirely clear is how did this happen in the first place? It probably happened on SANDAG's watch when they were operating the Compass card system. And, we're looking into that, and that's something we'll be following in the future.
And we'll continue to follow it with you. Thank you so much, KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen. San Diego County's economy gave mixed signals in January, with half the indicators up and the others down in the monthly report from the University of San Diego. There were gains in help wanted ads and building permits, but they were offset by drops in local stock prices, consumer confidence, and the outlook for the national economy. The mixed bag left the index of leading economic indicators unchanged from December after 3 months of consecutive increases. The developer behind the plans to build a shopping and dining center in Carlsbad has conceded defeat. The special election for the Agua Hedionda Lagoon development was close at last count, with nearly 52% against the plans. Still, Rick Caruso says he called the leaders of the opposition to congratulate their campaign victory. Caruso had planned to build on 15% of 203 acres he controlled near Interstate 5. A petition of signatures against the development forced the issue into a special election. The last count showed no votes, led at 51.99%. And tomorrow is Super Tuesday. 11 states holding presidential primaries and several more holding caucuses. It's the biggest single-day haul of delegates in the 2016 race. Texas is the big prize, and as John Moan of the Associated Press reports, it's a must-win for Senator Ted Cruz.
On the stump, Senator Ted Cruz channeling Texas history.
I shall never surrender or retreat.
Likening his fight for the Republican nomination to the most famous battle in the Lone Star State, the siege at the Alamo.
When Santa Anna demanded of the Texians as Gonzales, hand over your guns and hand over the cannon, how did we respond? Come and take it.
Texas is a must-win for Cruz. With 155 delegates up for grabs, it's the biggest prize among the 11 Republican contests next Tuesday. If Cruz wants to remain a credible candidate and halt Donald Trump's momentum, he needs a big victory here.
I think he feels that this may be his last stand.
Rice University pollster and political analyst Bob Stein says not only must Cruz win the primary, he also has to sweep every precinct in the state.
And for Ted Cruz, as the hometown favorite, as it were, he would have to win 50% of the vote in each of the 36 congressional districts in the state.
And Cruz is spelling that out to his supporters.
Texas has alone almost 15% of the delegates you need to be the Republican nominee.
Texas is home to almost 27 million people in 3 of the largest cities in the country. Cruz counts Houston as the heart of his support.
And if you compare the backgrounds and you compare the records of all the candidates, Ted Cruz is the only one who has a record of fighting for liberty and freedom.
Oil and technology are big in Texas. It has the longest continuous border with Mexico. Anxieties about the economy and immigration aren't lost on Cruz's closest competitor.
Then we'll talk about our borders, which we will build the wall, and it will be a great wall.
Trump is the wild card in Texas.
I'm kind of leaning toward Trump because of the circus, and I enjoy the circus on TV.
And some are also giving Senator Marco Rubio a look.
It's the first year I felt like my vote mattered in a primary, frankly, and it's exciting to have that opportunity and that option.
Rubio, like Cruz, has sharpened his attacks on Trump.
What we are dealing with here, my friends, is a con artist. He is a con artist.
The time for the clowns and the acrobats and the dancing bears has passed.
Most polls show Cruz with a sizable lead.
I believe we're going to do well.
And is that better than 50%?
I believe we are going to do well. That is going to be up to the voters.
Like the Alamo, it's political do or die for the Texas senator. John Moan, Associated Press, Houston.
Today, a Navy SEAL received the nation's highest military honor. He is Senior Chief Special Warfare Operator Edward Byers, Jr., a member of the Navy SEAL Team 6. He was awarded the Medal of Honor for his part in a raid to rescue an American hostage in Afghanistan.
Ed leapt across the room and threw himself on the hostage, using his own body to shield him from the bullets. Another enemy fighter appeared, and with his body, Ed kept shielding the hostage. With his bare hands, Ed pinned the fighter to the wall and held him until his teammates took action. It was over almost as soon as it began. In just minutes, by going after those guards, Ed saved the lives of several teammates and that hostage.
Byers is the first living active duty member of the Navy to receive the Medal of Honor in 4 decades. Students at Gompers Preparatory Academy in San Diego reenacted the 1963 March on Washington today. KPBS reporter Megan Burke says the event bookended their studies on the civil rights era and has a way to pass on what they learned to younger classmates.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
The senior class at Gompers memorized Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous I Have a Dream speech during Black History Month.
Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
They took turns reciting it Monday at a reenactment of the March on Washington. 18-year-old Naibel Thought was one of the students at the mic. She says the message still resonates today.
There's still things that we can change in life. There's still things that are incomplete in a way. That's what I want everyone to take away from this.
Students held replicas of the signs marchers carried in 1963. They read "Stop Police Brutality" and "Decent Pay Now." Megan Burks, KPBS News.
A Valentine's Day collision for a Google self-driving car. They've been testing 24 Lexus SUVs with sensors and cameras near the Silicon Valley headquarters. An accident report to the DMV says the Google vehicle was going 2 miles per hour trying to avoid some sandbags when it struck a public bus on a city street. No one was injured in the crash. Should Uber and Lyft drivers undergo fingerprint background checks? The California Public Utilities Commission is considering it. The CPUC wants to create a new set of rules to better ensure the safety of passengers who use the ride-sharing services. The current regulations require ride-sharing services to go back 7 years while conducting background checks, but not fingerprint checks. The CPUC will consider the proposal during its meeting on March 17th. California lawmakers voted today to extend the state's tax on health plans offering Medi-Cal services. The vote clears the way for $1 billion in federal matching funds. And because of that, some Republicans voted for the extension, though they are normally against tax increases.
The federal government has to be responsible for their tax dollars. We in the state of California need to be responsible for what our residents are paying and make sure we're keeping government small. But when we have an opportunity to bring back money that we're already paying and not getting our fair share back, we ought to be drawing down those dollars back to the state.
The state Senate unanimously passed another piece of legislation to use part of those federal dollars to permanently increase funding for programs for the developmentally disabled. The Supreme Court is going to let stand a lower court ruling that says state officials are making enough effort to notify people about forgotten assets. That includes money left in neglected bank accounts, forgotten shares of stock, as well as unclaimed property. A group of residents filed a lawsuit saying that not enough was being done, and the state is making a profit from the seizure of billions of unclaimed assets. The group says mailing a notice to the owner's home and publishing an ad is not enough.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next News Hour, candidates dash across the country as the election map grows for Super Tuesday. That's Monday on the PBS News Hour.
The San Diego City Council could soon answer calls for a senior center from older City Heights residents. The city's infrastructure committee recently approved a $5 million remodel of a building at Park de la Cruz that would include activities, services, and adaptive gym equipment for seniors. The committee also approved spending federal money on library, recreation, and police facilities in southeastern San Diego and downtown. The City Council has approved a plan to increase urban agriculture on vacant land. Owners of eyesore properties would get a tax reduction by allowing community gardens on their land. The minimum contract is 5 years to qualify for the break. Supporters say it will increase access to fresh produce. There is a push to get rid of paper pushing for California's organic farmers. State lawmakers are considering a bill to eliminate fees and paperwork. Organic farmers say they already do plenty of that for the federal government. Farmers say the additional layer of state regulations also don't help consumers because more regulation means higher prices. No time to go to the farmer's market for fresh food? You could just head to your mailbox instead. The AP's Ted Shaffrey explains.
Peel a small dicey onion.
The Robinson family is busy. She's a doctor, he's a school principal. But dinner time is no longer a stressful sprint to get food on the table.
It really lowers our level of anxiety throughout the week because we can really plan and we know exactly what we're going to eat during the day.
The Robinsons are among a growing number of people signing up for ready-to-cook meals delivered to their door. For $69 a week, Blue Apron sends them all the ingredients to prepare 2 meals for their family of 4.
My husband and I both work full-time. My daughters are very involved in a lot of extracurricular activities. So I was looking for an alternative that would be able to provide healthy meals, but in a time-efficient way.
Meal kits are expected to be a multi-billion-dollar industry in the U.S. within the next 5 years as more businesses try to cater to busy lifestyles. Purple Carrot's niche is they provide vegan meals.
We have reliably grown 10% a week for the last few weeks, so we're doing well, and we're the little guys.
The CEO of Gobble says her customers want to see the raw ingredients that go into the food they eat.
We started out just in the San Francisco Bay Area. Pretty quickly, we expanded to the whole state of California. We just launched in Seattle, Washington, and this week we're launching in Colorado. And we are rolling out nationally, week after week this entire year.
Market analyst Darren Seifer says the freshness is key.
Over the last decade, we've noticed that consumers have been using more fresh foods and beverages, particularly younger adults, the millennial generation. And it's those same people who pulled back from restaurants the hardest when the recession first hit.
But instead of going back to restaurants, people are recreating the dishes at home. Audrey Merritt says the meals, besides saving on the cost of takeout food, have expanded her family's palate.
The variety, these are things that I would never cook myself. I would never cook moussaka myself. And I find like, oh my gosh, I'm cooking moussaka.
Opening up new culinary adventures for those who do not want to leave the comforts of their own kitchen. Ted Shaffrey, Associated Press, New York.
I would like to relinquish command of the International Space Station to my friend and colleague here, Tim Kopra.
American astronaut Scott Kelly handed over command of the International Space Station today. Kelly is headed back to Earth after nearly a year in space. Now, that's a record for the U.S. He'll be joined with his Russian counterpart, Mikhail Koryenko. Together, the pair made up the crew of the one-year mission, which NASA says is a stepping stone for future missions to Mars and beyond. Among the people excited to see Kelly return to Earth are researchers at UC San Diego. A team at the university is looking into the prolonged effects of space travel using Kelly and his twin brother, Mark, who is an astronaut, but unlike his brother, spent this past year on Earth.
NASA is very interested in identifying some of the health issues that the astronauts might experience on these long flights, and so that they can create countermeasures or interventions to prevent some of these issues and maintain their health for long-term missions.
And Scott Kelly will serve as the control subject in the experiments. Names will be changing at midnight at Yosemite National Park, unless there's a last-minute settlement of a legal fight over those names. The Park Service is planning to change signs overnight, but one of those signs is already gone. Over the weekend, someone stole the sign for the Ahwahnee Hotel. And the ski area in Mountain High has closed until it snows again. The closure is just temporary until the next snowfall. Here's a look at the slopes less than 2 weeks ago. But the warm weather has taken its toll. The resort expects to reopen around March 10th. Other resorts in the region have thicker blankets of snow, so they will stay open. And we have a bit of a wait before we see any rain or snow in Southern California. Steph Davis has our forecast.
Happy Monday, everyone, and thankfully we will enjoy quiet weather as we kick off the work and school week. You'll notice largely dry conditions across the southwestern United States. A couple of clouds and bands of showers off to our north and northern California, but across the San Diego area, things looking good with mainly clear skies from Borrego Springs all the way south towards Chula Vista, and that's what we will experience as we head into tonight. So clear and 50 tonight in Borrego Springs, 36 and clear skies in Mount Laguna, 43 and quiet in Ramona. Temperatures in Oceanside falling back to 48 degrees tonight. Will fall back into the 50s in San Diego itself. Looking ahead to our Tuesday, jet stream lifting to the north, allowing mild air to press in from the south, so unseasonably warm temperatures across much of Southern California, Southern Nevada, and getting into Arizona as well. So daytime highs will range well above average for this time of year. We should be in the mid-60s, and we'll see temperatures take off into the 70s. Here's a look at your 5-day outlook for the coast. Fog lifting for sunshine on Tuesday, so do watch for minor travel delays in the morning due to reduced visibility, though that fog will burn off as we head throughout the afternoon, climbing to a high of 73 degrees. Mostly cloudy and 73 for your Wednesday. Temperatures cool off back to the upper 60s Thursday and Friday, and Saturday looks good with a daytime high at the coast of 70 degrees. Your 5-day outlook inland, mild temperatures Tuesday and Wednesday with highs again about 10 degrees above average, climbing to the mid-70s. High clouds for your Thursday, otherwise mostly sunny and pleasant. And we'll see some brightening as we look ahead to Friday and Saturday with our daytime highs around 70 degrees. Your 5-day outlook for the mountains will even get into the 70s across the mountains Wednesday and Thursday. High clouds building in Thursday and Friday with temperatures in the 60s, and then we'll cool things back down in the mountains as we look ahead to our Saturday. Your 5-day outlook for the desert, sure going to be hot out there. Daytime highs low 90s through Tuesday and Wednesday. Temperatures still remain mild Thursday as we flirt with 90 degrees. Partly sunny and warm to wrap up the week on Friday, and the weekend looks good with a mix of clouds and sun and your daytime high at 85 degrees. Steph Davis, KPBS News.
Poetry echoed through the California Capitol building today. It was part of the 2016 state finals of California Poetry Out Loud. Students from 39 California counties took part. Each student selects poems that inspire them and recites those memorized poems in front of an audience.
I think poetry is a unique form of expressing yourself, and I also think that it's a form that requires more thought than the others. So being able to try to interpret what another poet says, I think is important to do, and I enjoy that part of it.
And the winner of the Poetry Out Loud competition gets a plaque, books for their school, and a monetary reward. California is the largest competition of its kind in the nation. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. From all of us here at KPBS, thanks for watching and have a great evening.